No, this isn't a video about the second album by Alien Ant Farm. This is about anthology movies. An anthology movie is a single film that usually consists of 3 or more short films, often tied together with one overarching story. Movies like 4 Rooms, Cat's Eye, Creepshow, and the more recent VHS series. Anthology movies are tricky to pull off because most often, there are some of the stories within that are better than the others. Although the upside is that even if there is a bad one in the bunch, it's usually short enough that the viewer will stick around for the next entry. Anyway, here's 5 anthology movies you may have overlooked. After Midnight. After Midnight's a horror anthology from 1989 that was written and directed by brothers Ken and Jim Wheat. The overarching story is about 2 college students, Allison and Cheryl. They're enrolled in a new class called The Psychology of Fear. The professor decides to start off this class about fear by scaring the crap out of the students, including making one of them pee his pants. The one kid is highly offended, so he reports Professor Derek to admin, and they force him to censor his teachings. Essentially, he has to tone everything down. Lots of the students are intrigued by what the professor was trying to teach, so he offers to have the kids come to his house for a private lesson. Allison, Cheryl, and the rest of the class go, and Professor Derek proceeds to tell them a series of scary stories. The first is about a couple that are driving along the highway, and they get stuck with a flat tire. They seek shelter in a creepy old mansion, and as they investigate the place, they find all sorts of weird, unsettling things. The second story is about 4 girls who are out clubbing. While trying to find a new club, they get lost and end up in the wrong side of town. The girls stop at a gas station and ask for directions, which upsets a roving pack of dogs who begin to hunt the girls. The third story is about Alex, a girl working at a phone messaging service. She's in the call center alone with a broken leg and is getting frantic calls from a guy who's trying to reach a woman named Vanessa. When Alex gets a hold of Vanessa, she tells him the guy who's trying to reach her has been stalking her and is trying to kill her. The main story wraps when Russ, the guy who peed himself in class, breaks into Professor Derek's house to get revenge. The movie's an interesting mix of horror, in that the scary stories are all based in reality without going into the supernatural. Well, there's a little supernatural, but it gets explained. There's also a little bit of tongue-in-cheek humor. The ending's a bit of a cop-out, but I still enjoyed it. The writer-directors said they were inspired by the 1945 British anthology movie Dead of Night. The movie hit theaters on November 3rd, 1989. It only opened in 224 theaters, making about $76,000 in its very small run. Critics weren't too kind and called the movie boring. I disagree. The concept of a class on fear with a very eccentric professor who pushes the envelope in his class was highly entertaining. Each of the stories was well done, and while things wrapped up a bit too neat at the end, it didn't detract from the film overall. The movie was locked on VHS until 2005 when it was first released on DVD. Then it was remastered for Blu-ray by Shout Factory in 2017. The movie's currently streaming on Amazon Prime. Grim Prairie Tales. Grim Prairie Tales is a 1990 mystery western anthology written and directed by Wayne Coe. The movie's about Morrison, a bounty hunter, and Deeds, a clerk. The two sit around a campfire and share stories. The first is about a Native American tribe getting revenge on a man who desecrated their sacred burial grounds. The second's about a man who helps a woman who turns out to be a succubus. The third's about a father who is unwittingly drawn into working with a lynch mob. The last story is about a gunman in the Old West who's being haunted by another gunman he killed. The cast for the movie is greater than you would expect. James Earl Jones, Brad Dourif, William Atherton, and Mark McClure. Aside from the cast, this had one other major talent attached. This was the first film shot by future award-winning DP Janusz Kaminski, who became Steven Spielberg's go-to DP. The movie had a small theatrical release before going direct-to-video. While the film was marketed as a horror film, it was more of a mystery like The Twilight Zone or Night Gallery. The movie did get a DVD release, but it's hard to find. It's not available for streaming, but it is on YouTube. The Willies. The Willies is a 1990 horror anthology written and directed by Brian Peck. The main story is about 2 brothers, Josh and Kyle, and their cousin Michael. They're sitting around a campfire telling scary stories. The catch is that they claim each of their stories is 100% true. Before getting into the main stories, they tell quick little ones. Tennessee Fricassee, where a woman finds out the fried chicken she's eating isn't chicken at all. Haunted Estate, about an old man who dies in an amusement park. And Poodle Scuffle, about a senile old lady who dries her poodle off in the microwave. After this, they go into the longer tales. The first is Bad Apples, about a kid at school who's dealing with bullies. He finds there's a monster in the school bathroom, and he sends the bullies in there to be killed. The second is Flyboy, about a young prankster named Gordy who's obsessed with flies. Gordy gets some special manure, which makes the flies grow into giants. The movie then has an epilogue that stands as the final story that ties the previous two tales together. The movie also has a pretty well-known cast. Sean Astin, classic actor Clu Gulager, James Caan, and stand-up comic Doug Benson. In a humorous callback to the sitcom Growing Pains, Kirk Cameron and Tracy Gold reprise their characters for a joke in the movie.
Either way, you're still a pig.
Oh, relax. These flies aren't for me. They're for Gordy Belcher.
Jeremy Miller, Ben from Growing Pains, plays one of the bullies. And Kirk Cameron's real wife, Chelsea Noble, plays the news anchorwoman. I couldn't find any box office numbers, so I think this went direct to video. The movie was released on Laserdisc and DVD. It's currently streaming on Plex, and it's also on YouTube. Nightmares. Nightmares is a 1983 horror anthology movie from director Joseph Sargent. This one's unique because it doesn't have an overarching or connected story. It's just 4 unconnected tales. The first, Terror in Topanga, is about a highway cop that gets stabbed by a serial killer in the areas around Topanga, California. Lisa, a chain smoker, goes out to the store to get more smokes. While out there, she notices the attendant matches the description of the serial killer. The second is The Bishop of Battle. A young kid, JJ, played by Emilio Estevez, is obsessed with beating a new game called The Bishop of Battle. No one has ever made it to the 13th level, and he makes it all the way to the 12th level before dying. Determined to beat the game, he breaks into the arcade to play it until he beats it. Only the game starts to bleed into reality. The third is The Benediction. A Catholic priest, Frank, played by Lance Henriksen, has lost his faith in God. He resigns from the church and goes out to try to find a new purpose. While on the road, he runs into a truck that's driven by the devil himself, and Frank needs to rediscover his faith in order to survive. The last is Night of the Rat. A family finds their home plagued with rats and possibly something else. The movie was originally made into a 2-hour pilot for NBC. They were going to make this into a weekly anthology series. NBC Universal saw the end result and thought it would work better as a theatrical movie. The movie hit theaters on September 9th, 1983. On a $6 million budget, it only made $6.7 million in its box office run. Critics didn't like the film, but almost all of them praised the Bishop of Battle segment, saying that was the best one. I have to agree. Most people who have seen the movie will point to that as their favorite. The movie was released on VHS and later DVD and Blu-ray. While it didn't go over well at the time, it's now seen as a cult classic. Nightmares isn't available for streaming, and aside from some clips, it's not on YouTube. Southbound. Southbound's a 2015 horror anthology directed by Radio Silence, that's this person's name, Roxanne Benjamin, David Bruckner, and Patrick Hovarth. I'm going to be vague about these stories because they all tie into each other and I don't want to spoil anything. The first story, The Way Out, is about 2 guys on the run from these weird floating monsters. The second story, Siren, is about a group of traveling musicians who run into a group they believe are satanic serial killers. The third story, The Accident, is about a guy who accidentally runs over a woman and then rushes her to a local hospital. The fourth story, Jailbreak, is about a woman who goes to a local bar that is attacked by a demon. The fifth story, The Way In, is about a woman escaping the bar who is chased by a new group of men who are accusing her family of being killers. As I said, all of these stories tie into each other. For example, the woman in the second story is the one who gets run over in the third story. In another unique angle with this movie, They have 5 sequences instead of the usual 3. Also, those floating demon things appear in different parts of each story. Sometimes they're easier to spot, while other times they're hidden. While the other anthologies on this list are pretty straightforward, this movie is one of those ones where you appreciate it more on the second viewing. It was made by Brad Miska, the founder of Bloody Disgusting, and a variety of filmmakers who worked on the horror anthology series VHS. The movie premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2015, and after a short theatrical run, it was released video on demand in February of 2016. Later that year, it was released on DVD and Blu-ray. The movie has a mix of mostly positive reviews, with some comparing it to Tales from the Crypt. There's a lot of allusions in the film that I won't spoil here. I'll just reiterate what I said in that you will see a lot more within the movie with the second viewing. Southbound is currently streaming on AMC+. If you'd like to see the bonus 6th entry, as well as the ability to vote on what shows up in future episodes, please consider joining my Patreon. I didn't initially set out to do so many horror anthologies, but that's what I ended up with. That seemed to be the best genre for these anyway. I hope you enjoyed them. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.
Mess yourself. Young man, when I am speaking to you, I want you to look at me. What are you staring